What's up, guys? My name is Kay Anagonio, and you are listening to Project Freelance. This is the podcast about freelancing, whether you are a photographer, a filmmaker, a musician. If you like to do contract real estating, I don't know if that's a thing, but basically, if you do any type of creative work or you do any type of contract work, you are a freelancer. So, this podcast is for you. I give you all these cool tips and tricks and tell you stories and tour stories and tell you how I got started and how I got to where I am in my career. So last week I talked about how to become a touring photographer. So if you want to know more about that and you haven't checked out that podcast because this is the first podcast that maybe popped up on your feed, go check out the past podcasts. There's 8 more of them behind this one. So don't miss out. Make sure you guys subscribe. And please, if you like this podcast, will you do me a little favor? Just scroll down. There should be a little section that says rate and comment. If you guys rate this podcast, it helps more people hear the podcast. And the cool thing about podcasts is that they're free, so it literally costs you nothing. So if you want to help me out in that way so that we can possibly get sponsors and brand deals and give you guys some free shit on the podcast through like companies like Canon or Sony or, you know, Pelican or whoever it is that I think you guys would get some significance out of knowing about, share this podcast, rate this podcast, enjoy this podcast. Cool. So this week on episode 9 of Project Freelance, I wanted to talk about this idea of perfection. This idea that nothing you create is perfect. You want everything to be perfect, and sometimes you feel like you completely bombed on a project, but your client loves it, and you don't understand why. I want to talk about that in this week's episode. And this was actually requested on my Instagram at Anagonio Photography. Danny Vargas messaged me. His Instagram is 43rd Street Photos, 43rd_street_photos. Go follow him. He's a great guy. I am so glad that you reached out to me, Danny. So Danny has this unfortunate feeling where he feels like none of his work is ever perfect. And he's had his fair share of shoots that have gone horribly wrong. And he feels like the fact that he bombs his shoots makes his work less good and it makes him a worse photographer because his work isn't perfect. And that's what I want to talk about this week. First of all, Danny, let me tell you, this isn't just you. You are not the only one that feels this way. Every day I wake up and I work on something, and at the end of the day, when I look back at what I worked on, I say, wow, I could change so much of this because this isn't good enough. This isn't good enough to submit to, put on my YouTube. This isn't good enough to put on Instagram. This isn't good enough to send to a real client, like alternative press, it's so nerve-wracking, this idea that we have to be perfect. And that's not only our internal voice seeking that perfection as a human being, but now, because we live in this world of social media, you have to put your best work out there. That's marketing. I remember I was talking to Tyler Carter. He's the singer for a band called Issues. He used to be in a band called Woe Is Me. Tyler told me one day that you have to market yourself so perfectly to get where you want to get. And he told me that the best thing that you can do is put your best work out there. Because if you have awesome work, if you have like 4 amazing videos and then you have like 6 okay videos, why would you want to put your okay work out there? Sure, you might only have 4 videos up instead of 10, but they're 4 of your best videos. That's how you get your best clients. So I know, Danny, you're talking about shooting specifically, like for shoots, but I just wanted to talk about video production and submitting work to clients and things like that, because that's kind of where I am right now. I'm currently editing a bunch of things, so my mindset is like things need to be perfect that I'm submitting to clients, so everything right now for me, like I'm such a perfectionist right now. And not only that, but I'm also working on a bunch of personal projects. I'm working on a couple documentaries that I filmed over the course of 57 days while on the Vans Warped Tour. It is a traveling music festival. There's like 70 bands and 7 stages, and we just have a grand old music party all day, every day for 57 days. So while I was creating content for Alternative Press magazine out on the road on Warped Tour to give fans at home the experience of Warped Tour if they couldn't come to a show or if they just wanted to relive the show. So I would do daily posts on the Instagram stories, and it would be updated about every 15 to 20 minutes throughout the day. When I wasn't doing that, I was shooting bands, I was filming content to create weekly recaps of Warped Tour. So I was doing all of this all day, every day. But if I had any free time, I would go find someone that I wanted to share their story, you know? So, for example, I did a piece on Andy Biersack's bodyguard, Matt Yanni. So these are just some of the things that I like to do. And this just shows you, like, every opportunity you have to work, take it. You'll be exhausted. Trust me, I was on tour for 57 days and I did shit all day, every single day. By the end of the day, I would start editing in my bunk as the tour bus left, and I would pass the fuck out so fast just because I was exhausted every day. But it was so worth it. It was so worth it. It was worth the drama. It was worth the fucking sleepless nights. It was worth everything. It was worth everything. It was absolutely incredible. But every time I submitted something to Alternative Press that summer, I had like an anxiety attack every time because I would look back at my footage and be like, wow, this sucks. Like, I want to change every single frame in this video because they all suck. That's my type of perfection. Like, that's what goes through my head when I'm finishing up a project and like submitting it. I always undervalue myself. And this is the problem. Because we are trying to be so perfect, we tend to bring ourselves down. We almost bully ourselves, you know? We bully ourselves into thinking that we're not as good as our content. And that's crazy because we are really our own worst enemy. We forget to give ourselves grace. And that's the thing. That's the hard part about being a freelancer. Not only do we forget to give ourselves the recognition we deserve and give our work the recognition it deserves, but we also have this fear of not making money. That's a huge, huge, huge stress on all freelancers. No matter how successful you are, no matter how much money you're making, we live in a world, in this freelancing world, we live in a world where nothing is secure. Nothing is secure. Your job isn't secure. Your project isn't secure. Whatever it is you're doing, your financial state is never going to be as secure as it would be if you were working a standard 9-to-5 job. But fuck working a 9-to-5 job, because if you worked a 9-to-5 job, you would never get to do the things that you're doing. You would never get to do what you love to do. If you love photography, why are you working at Taco Bell? Why? Because you need the money? Why don't you go start taking pictures for money? Why don't you go work at a photography studio? Why are you working at Taco Bell? That's fucking dumb. Apply yourselves, guys. Apply yourselves. And I know I go off on these tangents about things like money and like all that stuff. That's because I've learned so much about finances and accounting and like everything. I've had to learn every aspect of being a business person on my own. I didn't go to school for business. I didn't go to school for accounting or marketing. I went to school for film production. But now I know business, I know marketing, I know like social media marketing, which is huge. I know SEO marketing. I know how to do so many things. I know how to write up a contract. I know how, you know what? This is freelancing. When you are a freelancer, you don't just have one job. You're not just a photographer. You're a photographer, you're a photo printer, you're a booking agent, you're a manager, you do everything yourself. And when you get to that point where you need like an assistant, that's when you keep rolling. That's when you have an opportunity to do more things because you have someone that can, apply to jobs for you and check your email and pay your bills on time, things like that. So you can focus on just creating. And I'm not quite to that point yet, but I am so excited for the day when I can actually pay somebody to help me build what I'm building. And it sounds weird because, you know, I preach about follow your own dream, follow your own dream. Don't follow other people's dreams. Don't do things for other people to make their dreams come true when you have your own. But I do need to hire someone to help me make my dream come true. So like, there's that. I feel like every Batman needs a Robin. Maybe not in like the touching penises way. Well, I don't know. You know, there's speculation about Batman and Robin. And if you're under the age of, I don't know how old mature is now, if it's 18 still, 16, 14, I don't know what the kids are doing these days. But, sorry, I talked about penises touching. But I did. If somebody else is like passing your car or walks in the room and you're listening to this podcast, they're probably wondering what you're listening to. So I'm going to get back to the point. We are our own worst critic. But you know what? It's going to be okay. Because if you're working hard and you're making money and people are, you know, supporting what you're doing and they're telling you and recognizing your work, that should prove to you that you're doing a good job. You're doing a great or amazing, you know, you're doing an excellent job at what you're doing. You're just excellent. And I know this sounds so cliche and so cheesy, but like, practice makes perfect, guys. Practice absolutely makes perfect. And that's the closest you're going to get to perfect, because as much as we would like to be the perfect photographer, filmmaker, musician, person, there's no such thing as ultimate perfection. But you can get pretty damn close if you keep revising your work, if you keep practicing, if you keep creating. Your work's going to get closer and closer and closer to your idea of perfection. And you'll never get there. I'm just trying to be brutally honest with you. You're never going to get to the place where you think, wow, my life is perfect. My work is perfect. This photo is perfect. You will get very close to perfection, but there will always be that little voice in the back of your head that's going to be like, but is it perfect? Or is it just like passable? At least that's what the voice in my head says. So that's why I revise things so much. That's why I create something every single day. It's hard for me to take a day off. I actually don't take a day off. Even if I'm taking a day off and I'm like watching movies or playing video games or going to the beach or the park or the fucking movie theater, I'm working. I am working. I'm thinking about working. Everything I do, every aspect of my life, I think about working. My relationships, I think about my relationship, but like I also think about working at the same time, because those are my two loves, you know, like the love with another person or whatever, and the love of what I do, the love of creating, the love of making a story visual. I'm obsessed with it. I am absolutely obsessed with it. But with that chase of perfection comes some downfalls, obviously. It's very mentally stressful and mentally straining to be a freelancer who strives for perfection. Because how can you reach perfect? What is perfect? We don't have a model. There's no guidebook for how to become a perfect photographer, because there is no perfect photographer. But every one of us has this idea of who the perfect photographer is, or who takes the perfect photos, or what the perfect photos look like, or how they're composed, or what's in them, or who's in them. We all have this idea of who is perfect, though. And what I mean by that is the people you look up to, in a way, you see them as perfect. You see them as where you want to be. Their success, their goal, their level of success, I guess that's what I'm trying to say, where they are at and how they got there, that is basically your path to get to where they are. And because you know their path that they've taken and the mistakes they've made, that means you will be more perfect than them. If that makes sense. I'm not trying to tell you that like photography and creating is all about me, and like I have to be the best. But I'm just saying that is psychologically why we are perfectionists. So for example, some of my favorite photographers are like Chris Burkhardt and Pete McBride and Daniel Kordan and Frans Lanting. Like I I love these photographers. And if you don't know who they are, you should definitely check them out. Frans Lanting. I don't know how to say, I think your name is Frans. I would love to have you on the podcast, first of all, my friend. He is a photographer for Nat Geo, and he made a book called Into Africa, and it highlights his journey through Africa, and it shows the beauty and some of the freaking photos this guy takes. Oh my God. They look like they're created on a computer. They look so immaculately just perfect that they look fake. It's insane. And he's just that talented. And so I look at his work and I look at his Instagram, you know, and nowadays like Instagram is your, you know, not necessarily your portfolio, which I talk about in the portfolio episode. So I talk about portfolios versus social media posts, but I look at his Instagram and that makes me want to see his actual portfolio on his website, because we post more on our Instagram than we do on our website. Well, most people do anyway. But if you scroll through his Instagram, the colors, the way he composes his shots, the detail, the like clarity, and oh my gosh, you can tell why the guy works for Nat Geo. And to me, his perfect are photos. His photos are as close to like perfection as I can even imagine. Like, I look at a photo of a tree that he takes and I'm like, I don't think anybody could ever take a better photo. No one could ever take a more perfect photo. This is the perfect photo. And the same goes with like Daniel Kordan. He's a landscape photographer, and he's so talented, and like the way he captures color and the way he captures light, and his compositions are just, they're out of this world. He uses a lot of reflections in his photography. He does a lot of water photography. He uses lakes and bodies of water as almost the main subject of his photos. Even if the photo is a picture of castles, there's always like water in front of the castles, because he loves to get that reflection. He loves that mirroring effect. But what is his idea of perfect? What is his perfect? Who does he look up to? Who are his favorite photographers? Do they also do landscape photography? Do they do other things? And that's the thing. I don't do a whole lot of landscape photography, but it is so beautiful to me. That's what draws me to look at other photographers' work when it comes to landscape photography. And yeah, when I travel, I'll dabble a little bit into landscape photography, but it's not my forte. It's definitely not. But that doesn't mean that Daniel's work isn't my kind of perfect. So what I strive to do, because we have this perfectionist mindset, I try to give myself grace, like I said earlier, but I also ask my closest friends and family to be brutally honest with me about my work, because you can't grow without feedback. You can't grow without support. So when your friends tell you like, yo, that scene right there, I have no idea what is happening here. I have no clue what's going on in this. You need to change all of these things. And yeah, sometimes it's hard to hear harsh criticism, but it's necessary sometimes. Actually, most of the time, I always think that harsh criticism is necessary. It's like the whole good press, bad press is press. Whatever, bad press is good press because it's press kind of thing. I don't know what I'm trying to say. But when you have people that you can trust that will be completely honest with you, it will only help your work improve. It will only help you become closer to your idea of a perfect creator. And the other thing is, never settle on your work. Never settle on it. Never think that it's perfect. And that's the twisted part about this whole podcast and this whole idea of perfection, is that you can't ever allow yourself to reach perfect. So basically everything I just told you in the last 19 minutes and 23 seconds, just like disregard that for a second. Never settle. Never let yourself reach perfect. Because if you ever get to the point where you're like, I just took the perfect photo, that is the perfect video, this client just got the perfect song written for them. If you ever reach perfect, one, you're going to get a really big ego. You're going to be a dick. You're going to lose all of your friends because you're a dick. But mostly, there's no possibility. There's no way that you can reach perfect because it's intangible. It doesn't exist. Perfect doesn't exist, period. And people try so hard to convince themselves that, like, we are perfect. Like, I am perfect. And now I'm getting out of photography and going into race for a second. Like, white people think they're perfect. They think they are the superior race. Like, look at Donald Trump's family. They literally have said white people are superior to everyone else. Like, it's crazy. They're saying they're perfect, but there is no fucking perfect. It's a game. It's a farce. Everything's a farce. This whole fucking government's a farce. Photography is a farce. Media and news are both farces. Wow, I should talk about fucking fake news on this podcast. Yep, we're gonna do it. I'm gonna get somebody. Does anyone know anyone at like CNN or Fox or fucking any of these news outlets that I could talk to? Because that would be sick. I mean, how cool would it be if I got like an interview with a CNN news anchor or a photographer or filmmaker, whatever? It'd be pretty rad, right? Let's get those keyboards tapping away on the Twitters at CNN News, I think. At CNN, I don't know. Just, yeah, that would be really rad. And I know you would like that. So never settle. The other thing is, work harder. If you think your work is great, good. Work harder. If you think your work sucks, even better. Work harder. There's this filmmaker named Casey Neistat, and you might know him for his videos on YouTube, but he has also done stuff for CNN and Samsung. He's done things outside of YouTube, and to be honest with you, I think the term YouTuber is stupid. I don't think it should be a job title, and I know that it has led to make people's careers, but YouTube is not a career. Well, I guess people could argue that because it's a freelancing job, but I feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm just being naive, and maybe I'm being one of those people that are like, you need to get a real job because YouTube's not a real job. Listen, I've been making YouTube videos for a decade, so like, if anybody's gonna defend YouTube, it's me, but at the same time, I can tell you that it's not gonna be a viable career for everybody, unless you are a freelancer about it, unless you try to get that perfect YouTube video made. You try to get that perfect viral video. Then disregard what I said. Make YouTube your career. Fuck me, right? But at the end of the day, if you want something, no matter what it is, if it's a photography career, if you want to be a professional musician, you just gotta work hard. That's it at the end of the day. And give yourself some slack, man. You're never gonna be perfect. Just accept that and work hard. Work hard to try to get as close to it as possible. Keep a level head about it. It's gonna be stressful. It's gonna be hard. You're gonna, have some days where you have to eat ramen noodles. But one day you'll be eating steak every night if you keep working. And we all have bad days. We all have bad shoots. Shit happens, man. Lights don't work. Your camera doesn't work. Your cards are corrupted. You forgot to charge a battery. You forgot your lens. Whatever. You dropped your camera in the middle of the shoot and you shattered it. I hope that doesn't happen. Oh my God, if that happened, shit, I would cry for you for sure. But shit happens, man. Like, we're not perfect. So you can't expect to be perfect and perform perfectly and shoot perfectly and have the perfect shoot every single time. Shit is going to happen. But as a creator, you get to improvise a lot. You get to go with the flow more. You have more leeway because it is your project. Even if you're working for someone else, it's still your project because you're making it. And the best way to bounce back from having a bad shoot is going and shooting something you love, something fun, something that you're not getting paid to do. And yeah, you're going to be stressing about money, but if you take yourself out of that mindset, if you physically remove yourself from in front of your computer, or if you physically remove yourself from the stress, and this sounds so simple and so cliche, but we forget to do that because we are perfectionists. We think that we need to lock ourselves in a cave for 2 weeks to finish a music video because it has to be the perfect music video, because if it's not, you're never going to get another job. It's going to be the end of your career, blah, blah, blah. Listen, anytime you're stressed about creating something, anytime you're stressed about freelancing, just take a break, man. This is something that took me years to figure out. And when I say years, I've only been doing this professionally for 3 years. But what I'm trying to say is you just have to go do something fun. You have to take a break. Every once in a while, you've got to take a break. Otherwise, you will die, literally. It took a lot of family and friends to tell me that I got to sit down every once in a while and I got to just take a break, man. And even if taking a break means going out and shooting nature, or going out and hanging out with my friends and shooting, or traveling somewhere to go shoot, you need to do that stuff. You have to do things for you as well. So, Danny, did you get anything out of this podcast? Did this help at all? Man, I hope this helped. I hope it helped a lot. I basically just wanted to tell you why you feel that way, or, you know, an example of why you could feel that way. I don't understand what you're going through, but I can appreciate it because everyone's situation is different, and I appreciate what you're going through. And you have my support for sure, man. You have my support fully. And hey, just remember, if you have a bad shoot, it's okay. There's going to be more shoots in the future, I promise you. But take a second, step back, breathe, go do something you love to do. And the reason I say do something you're not getting paid for is because you need to go back to basics. When you take that break, when you take that personal time for yourself, you need to go back to basics. Which means you need to go back to the start, working for yourself, creating for yourself. Trust me, you'll feel so much better when you come back to your computer, or when you come back to the project. Like if you had to reschedule something, that's fine. Take a minute. If you had that bad shoot and you decided to reschedule with your client because they want you to, you know, they want to give you a second chance to make up for your work, good. Do it. Go shoot for yourself. You'll feel better, and then you'll have a better mindset when you go back into that project, guys. So Danny, just remember, man, you're not perfect, but you're going to get pretty damn close, man. Thank you guys for listening to this episode of Project Freelance. I will see you next week. I post these every single Sunday. So be sure to check out more episodes if you haven't. Subscribe to the podcast. It's free. And in the bottom part section area, if you could go ahead and rate this podcast and leave a little comment about what you liked or what you didn't like so I can know for future episodes. And if you have any questions that you would like me to address in this podcast, you can submit them to me either on my website, kanagoniophotography.com/contact, or you can hit me up on various social media. My username is @kanagoniophotography on Facebook and Instagram. My Twitter is @kanagonio. Fantastic. Now you have all the social medias that you probably don't care about, but if you do, there they are. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to share the podcast so that we can continue to grow, and I will talk to you guys on the next episode of Project Freelance, baby.